morning, Rob. Thanks so much for joining us at the Higher and Further Education Forum meeting. It'd be great if you could just share a little bit more about who you are, your role in the institution you're affiliated with in Malawi.
Okay, I'm Robert Ridley. I'm Vice Chancellor of Mzuzu University. I've had connections with Malawi for many years. My wife is from Malawi. My background is in academics, also worked the pharmaceutical industry, WHO. For the last 3 years I've been back in Malawi, first at University of Malawi as Pro-Vice Chancellor, and now at Mzuzu University for the last 18 months as Vice Chancellor.
Fantastic, thank you very much. We're going to be speaking at this meeting today about the World Bank Skills Development Programme, and I just wondered if you could share some of the key priorities within that programme for Mzuzu University.
Yeah, well, as you said, it's a broad perspective. There's a number of different universities participating, and it's also being used as a lever to help develop the National Council for Higher Education and to facilitate the development of higher education in general. At Mzuzu University, we have two main projects from the Skills Development Programme. The first is supporting open and distance learning. We'll be building 4 satellite centres in different parts of the country to help open and distance learning students connect with Mzuni and to make it easier for them to access information. Also, during their time where they need face-to-face support, they'll be able to go to these centres situated throughout the country rather than having to come all the way to Mzuzu for the face-to-face element. So that's the first part. It's supporting us expand our open and distance learning. The second component is development of a training centre for hospitality management through the creation of a building that is the easiest way to phrase it is a teaching hotel, but they don't like us to use the phrase teaching hotel. So it's a skills development centre for hospitality management.
Okay.
But essentially it will allow us to expand in the hospitality area, and we're going to use that money to leverage further support and expansion of our tourism faculty.
Fantastic, thank you very much. There's some really fantastic Government Malawi policies around the value of education generally, and of course higher education in terms of reducing poverty, inequality, looking at economic development. How do you see this new World Bank Skills Programme, particularly looking at the issue around accessibility, with Malawi having quite low enrolment rates compared to other countries in Africa?
Well, the project's set up in a different way to the normal sort of donor project, in that the payments will be made based on performance and reaching certain goals. It won't be the classic micromanagement of money that allows you to sort of get the money in bit by bit and use it bit by bit and have to account for every cent of one set of money before you can use the next money. So administratively, bureaucratically, it should be a lot easier. And one of the criteria, the main criteria by which payments will be made, will be based on performance linked to expansion. So new students accessing different programs. In theory, that's good, but it's also a risk for us as a university, because we are going to be receiving funds, committing those funds, but then if we're not reaching the targets, the further funds may not come, and there may be a financial gap develop as a result of that. So it's a new program, a new way of financing, but there are also added risks to us as a university. But the main criteria is expansion. So it's expansion of the numbers that will be enrolling in open distance learning. Mzuzu, we're looking to bring in around 500 students a year for ODL, which means that we will be, in 5 years, we'll have as many open and distance learning students as face-to-face. In this instance, most of those are in the area of education. So we'll be producing 500 new secondary school teachers per year. And similarly in the tourism, the numbers are not as big, but the expansion of numbers in tourism is a critical component.
Great, thank you. Another sort of strategic priority within the skills development program is looking at sort of market relevance, and what does that look like in terms of your current programs you're doing within Mzuzu University, or changes that you might see over the next few years?
I mean, just going back on your last question, I think also just to add,
sure.
The main value to all of the universities, the money that's coming in from the World Bank, is for infrastructure.
Sure.
So we're using the money to build buildings. Chancellor College is using the money to build buildings. So is the Polytechnic, so is Luana. So fundamentally, that's our main bottleneck. If we had sufficient funds for infrastructure development, we can expand. Our expansion at the moment is limited by the lack of infrastructure. I just want to make that.
Sure. Yeah.
And the question that you've just asked about market relevance, we thought long and hard about the projects that we would enter into for the World Bank project before we did this. Market relevance, I think, of open and distance learning is clear. It's not a market in the classic sense, but it's creating space and producing manpower to support, particularly from Mzuzu University, the secondary education system, which is a huge bottleneck, both in terms of encouraging primary school students to move into secondary education, also a huge bottleneck in the quality of secondary school students completing their NCE. And the other area is tourism, which again is a key priority area for strategy. And we've found the private sector very, very responsive to us expanding the way that we're doing, and they've influenced a lot the manner in which we're planning to develop our programs.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And interesting to hear about expansion being a key strategy in terms of increasing accessibility, but obviously for individual students there's still the challenge of tuition fees. What would that look like in an ODL context? Would that be very different and lower, or?
Well, our ODL fees are slightly lower, but at the same time, our expansion into ODL has to be largely self-financing. So, although we are using, there's a cross-subsidy happening between our subvention and our open and distance learning. So in Malawi, you have this challenge. You can't expand without money. Government doesn't have enough money. You have to go to the students. Many students, particularly the poorer students, don't have enough money. So there's a real need to look at developing higher education in a way that allows for charging appropriate fees at a level students can manage, but having a safety net, I suppose, or a good scholarship or loan system allows students to manage. There's one case at the moment where we're struggling. There's 3 students just trying to join university this time round. They're 3 brothers. They're sons of a primary school teacher. So we're having to really hunt around to try and find funds to allow, for example, those 3 to Mzuzu, we're actually starting actively to try and develop our own scholarship fund. We're kickstarting that in a couple of weeks' time with a concert, a pop concert. And we've been talking to some banks and private sector. So we're looking to develop a foundation to develop our own scholarship scheme. That's how we're looking to respond. Been quite lucky this year with funds coming in from African Development Bank, various health agencies for nursing scholarships, but particularly the African Development Bank fund, that's going to disappear next year, so we'll be back to square one.
And with the World Bank funding, I know that the National Council are going to be looking at sort of student financing and student loans. Will that have much of an impact on your students, or is that still to be seen what that will entail?
I think a lot will depend is how much money goes into the loan scheme,
Hmm.
uh, how how low down they can come in their ability to support. Um, I think it's the fact that a lot of money is actually going to support students at the moment that don't actually need it.
Okay.
So it's a matter of transferring some of those resources.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line will be how much money is in the fund.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. And interested again, going back to the satellite centres as well, and obviously that will require some technological infrastructure as well. Will that present a challenge, or where is Malawi in terms of being able to use new technologies and innovation to be able to offer education in a different modality?
Yeah, well, it's a challenge. I think it's slowly coming together for Malawi. But again, we have it's a resource issue. I think
Mm.
everybody knows what to do
Yeah.
and knows what right
Yeah.
to have.
Mm-hmm.
It's having to do it. So we're struggling for the want of about 90,000 euros. We're struggling at the moment as a country to have access to a research and education network to link into internet facilities linked to an EU project.
Mm-hmm.
With respect to ODL, we're planning to build in uh, internet facilities in the centres. With the current African Development Bank project, we're establishing an ODL centre on campus. So the World Bank project is complementing the current African Development Bank project. And as part of that project, we're establishing a broadband intranet system
Okay. Yeah.
on our campus to facilitate e-learning. We'll also facilitate electronic access to our notes. At the moment, our ODL students are working through printed books that they're
Okay.
given
Mm-hmm.
to come, and there's a little bit of online support, but minimal. So with the African Development Bank project and this World Bank project over the next 2 years, we hope to move into the 21st century as far as e-learning and ODL is concerned.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And just as a final question for you, Rob, for us here in Scotland, obviously very strong connections between Scotland and Malawi within higher education. And looking forward in terms of Malawi's priorities and these new initiatives, what contribution can Scottish colleagues and Scottish friends be making in these areas?
Yeah, it's I think collaboration in any form, particularly collaboration that facilitates a transfer of resources and physical infrastructure equipment to Malawi. There's a need for skills development, skills exchange,
Mm-hmm.
and development, masters, PhD students, hopefully in a few years even postdocs. But the critical issue is, I think, to get research initiated on Malawian soil, involving Malawians, and to try and do it in a way that allows for infrastructure equipment to be placed on university campuses.
Okay.
That's our critical gap.
Okay. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Rob. Really appreciate your time, and Skype willing, perhaps we'll be able to